This is Contestants Not Appearing on Stage, a weekly podcast for game show enthusiasts. Episode number 9, Renewed Interest, recorded January 22nd, 2016. Welcome back to another episode of Contestants Not Appearing on Stage. You could call it a holiday hiatus, you could call it a second season, whatever you call it. You probably shouldn't because that's a little bit weird because we're only on episode 9. Thanks for joining us all the same. I am Torgo, and joining us this week we have a huge amount of co-hosts. But that's okay. Let's start from the top and let's see who's here.
I'm Jordan, aka Unique Perspective, and tonight I'm getting 8 to 12 inches.
My name's Adam, Road Geek Adam, and unfortunately I'm getting none.
I'm Derek, aka Thupa, and I'm up here in Northeast Ohio where everyone has 1 to 2 inches.
I'm Jason, aka JJMan920, and I am getting a foot, but it will not be in my mouth, unlike Donald Trump.
I'm Randy, aka Punchboard91, Jack, etc., and I thought when I quit Dairy Queen I wouldn't have to deal with any more blizzards.
And I'm Nick, and I'm just getting a little lake effect.
Very nice, and if it's snowing where you are, you probably won't even be hearing this because your internet will be out anyway, so haha.
Quite like Adam's usually is.
Exactly. We have a lot of lost ground to cover, so we start with Christmas week of 2015, which I realize was about a month ago now. A whole bunch of crazy stuff. They didn't really push the budget that much apart from showing the big 3 games, Golden Road Triple Play and 3 Strikes, which they did last year as well. But the notable thing that happened is that we finally, for the first time since 2007, which Drew loved to point out time and time again, somebody won Triple Play, the game where they have a car behind each of the 3 big doors. And amusingly, we had, on Christmas week, a contestant named Jesus win the 3 gifts from the Magi. You can determine what car was gold, or frankincense, or myrrh. And I can't speak for my cohorts, but I honestly say, as someone who watches the show regularly, it is a really awesome feeling and experience to watch somebody win a game for the first time in almost a decade.
I don't know if I was as excited as you were. I mean, I was excited because it was a triple play win. I think for me, the time frame of it was just sort of lost on me. Because it's been so long, it got to the point where I wasn't even thinking about it. And not that it wasn't enjoyable, but it was enjoyable for me because it was a triple play win, not that it was a triple play win for the first time in 8 years.
But what we have to remember is that the Price is Right actually spoiled that triple play was going to be won a good week before the show actually aired.
I mean, they did, but like for us noticing, but I don't know that anybody just watching the clip would have been paying that close of attention to it.
That's true, because they only showed a guy freaking out on the floor and 1 car in the background. I mean, you could see the triple play prop, so the longtime fans know what happened, and that's a big deal. But for a casual observer, yeah, probably not that big of a deal.
It isn't that big of a deal. That's why Drew kept mentioning how long it's been since it's been won.
It's true. But then again, Drew likes to mention things over and over again. Like, oh, look, it's $1 on the wheel. And then it lands like halfway across on like 50. Oh, I just missed it. And then right after Christmas week, we had a perfect show, our second one of the season on December 30th. Not as impressive, I think, as the first one that we had way back in September with 3 strikes and let 'em roll in a perfect show, which that's just crazy to think about that even happened.
Yeah, but it was still a very good, very fun show. I felt sorry for the show because, you know, they had this wonderful, perfect show the day before their best of show, and it's like, well, good luck topping this one. This was the way to end the year, so.
We follow the same rule of a perfect show that the show always has, where it's just the 6 pricing games are won. The top prize is won in each of the 6 pricing games. You don't have to worry about item up for bid amounts or nailing it for the extra $500. The Showcase Showdown bonus catch doesn't matter. The showcase values don't matter. Just the 6 pricing games being won is what constitutes a perfect show.
But Torgo, what if Plinko is played?
But Randy, is that segue necessary?
Plinko opens up a whole can of worms that's probably left for another discussion at another episode. And then right after that, we had the best of 2015. Not a very interesting show. The highlight for me was seeing them just shove squeeze play in front of Contestants Row out of nowhere. But it brings up an interesting question, is do you feel, as a fan, that what they do now, because it's it's relatively recent doing the best of at the end of the year. Would you rather see a best of 2015 show, or would you rather see like a best of season 44 show come June?
Probably the best of season 44 because this just highlights everything that's gone on since the beginning of this calendar year, and at times it cut off a lot of good weeks that occurred at the beginning of season 43 and were denied entrance.
To the shock of people on this podcast, I am going to disagree with Adam. And I just think it flows better to have a best of the year, best of 2015, 2014. And yes, there's the season-long gap, but I just think linearly and sort of in terms of things to think about, I think it makes more sense. Plus, I just find that going back to a winter as opposed to going back to in the fall, I think you cover more ground and you have more potential options. Like for the best of 2015, I like the combination we had of stuff like Vendo Prize, $100,000 Grand Game revisited again.
But the thing with that is, if we were to change it, it would just be still the same thing, though, because it would have been from the same season. It just would have been at the beginning. Like now it would be awkward to change it because it'd be in June and we just had one 6 months ago. But once you changed it, we would still get the same thing, assuming they do it every year, because we would have gotten the 100,000 from the previous time or whatnot. And then the pricing game that introduced to the beginning of the season, you still get the same thing, just at a different point.
Well, my thing is that it's much more marketable when you do it for New Year's Eve. It makes the most sense doing it for New Year's Eve because then you do an end of season show in June. Well, what do you do in New Year's Eve then? I feel that the best of the year is the best possible solution for a special show. People might be home that aren't home, and this way you have a good way to get people's eyes on the program. And with the stuff that happened this past year, I think it showcases how well a best of year show can be when you can reference George falling on the treadmill and Manuela giving out the car for free, even though she wasn't on this year's end of year show when the game was played, but whatever. But I just think it's much more marketable at the end of the year.
Well, and the other thing with that is the fact that the season doesn't necessarily end in June. We still have our July 4th, the back to school that are kind of spread out throughout there. So if you have an end of season show in June, that's like saying, oh, if something memorable happened, in the 4th of July show, well, it won't be included, obviously, but then it wouldn't be included in next seasons because that's not part of that season. And I think the other thing to note is the fact that and I don't think they do this as much anymore, but it used to be that I believe someone said that they wanted the summer repeats for a casual viewer to not realize they're in repeats. I mean, now they do put some holiday, shows and whatnot in there. But I mean, if you look at a good majority of game shows, they don't reference the fact at the end of the season, because I know it used to be that they wanted you to believe that they were still doing new shows. So that's why they don't, say, hey, this is our last show. So, I mean, that's kind of where
that's a good
I don't
point.
know if there's, I think they've kind of stopped that a little bit because sometimes they re-air the holiday shows throughout the summer and whatnot. But that used to be during the Bob era. They would just pick generic shows, and then casual viewer doesn't watch every day is just like, oh, I haven't seen this one before, it must be new. So
well, you also have to think how many people still think the show is broadcast live. I mean, some people out there still think that the show is taped to broadcast immediately, and a lot of stuff isn't exclusive to one day. And the other reason I think that the best of 2015 or a yearly would be better, more people are watching because a lot of people aren't working during the holiday season. So in order to boost up the ratings, they'll be like, hey, we're going to have a big best of. Whereas if you have it when summer is starting, a lot of people are out of town on summer. A lot of people have other things going on during the summer. Or a lot of people are just working like regulars. So they get a larger viewership during the holiday season, which I think is why they do it.
I just think the form of it can feel a bit weird as well. Like, imagine Game of Thrones. Tune in to the season finale where we have a clip show. It wouldn't work for scripted television, and I wonder if for game shows people are sort of thinking along the same ideas of having a true finale.
I would like to just make a mention of this show, and I just want to introduce the question. I thought this episode was very lackluster compared to its precedents. I mean, other than $100,000 Grand Game and a pair of dirt cheap cars, I just argue that everything just felt very cheap for this compared to most of them.
I have to say I agree with you. It's just nothing really popped out. Sometimes in the past shows they'd have, and it's not a big deal for regular casual fans, but for us, they had more than one small prize game, maybe more than one cash game. They spiced it up a little bit. This was a little generic. They had the moments from the season to build off of, and I think that's one of the things that probably led to why they did the show the way they did, because they had to show George falling off the treadmill, and then they had George actually recreate the moment again. They had to show the clip of Manuela. Then in the showcases, they had to show Corden and Bob coming back.
And the mass wedding, that took up a little bit of time too.
In the mass wedding. So it's like they had so many clips this past year rather than just perhaps, pricing game moments. It was more than just that probably led to this generic kind of show.
Well, do you think it would work better with a half-hour format and an hour-long show like the 25th anniversary special? Would that be a better compromise?
No.
Are you talking about how Bob celebrated his 50th year on television and they only had 3 pricing games and a whole bunch more clips thrown in?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe if they did it as I don't want to say a primetime thing because not enough people really care about it to justify a primetime airing.
Because the whole thing is that Bob had 50 years worth of clips to go through. If you're saying we're doing this once a year, we don't have that many clips to justify that half-hour show. Like when you cut out 3 games and all of the other stuff, there were a lot of clips. We wouldn't have that much more clips than what they already showed us. So,
but at the same time, I agree with that. But at the same time, they are cutting down on showtime, so it might come to a point where 10 years down the road, they will have to eventually maybe perhaps revert to a format of just 3 games, bunch of clips, even though we don't have that many clips. So,
but you're saying that as a daily basis, like a daily show, right?
No. I'm saying that it's like just in terms of showing
just the
clips.
New Year's Eve special.
Yes, just the New Year's Eve special.
Okay, I thought you were saying it's a daily show, and I'm like, we'll be getting clips every day. Well, here's a clip of what happened yesterday, in case you missed it.
Previously,
that spelling bee
Price is
bailout.
Right.
Ooh, you took that $4,000.
And upcoming news for The Price is Right. Next week is Socially Awesome Week. They've been kind of hush-hush about just what they're doing, apart from one detail, which a lot of us are aware of, the guest announcer contest. For all we know, one of us could be the guest announcer on the show next week. We don't really know.
I can assure you it's not me.
Not me. I would have screamed from the mountaintops if it was me. It's not me.
No, but I guess in reference to what Torgo was talking about, for those who don't know, the guest announcer contest was something that Price is Right offered, where if you follow them on Twitter, record a quick video of you saying, "It's a new car!" and put it on Twitter, you have a chance to announce, I believe it's 1 segment or 1 game.
Set it in the rules. 1 game of 1 episode of The Price is Right. That was it.
Basically, it reeked of Vanna for a day.
Yes, it really did.
Sort of, except you actually get to talk.
Yeah.
Yes, but Vanna for a day ended up being Vanna for 5 minutes.
For 1
This
round.
That being said, you get a lot more on-air time.
Yeah, you get to do a lot more.
You know what would have been really funny? Just on a side note, is if on Vanna for a day we'd had one of those 1-letter solves. Okay, you touched 1 letter. That's it for this round.
Everybody give her a round of applause. Good job.
Yeah. Do you think that they're going for a lot more viewer interaction this year? Because I get the sense with what they were doing last year with a constant Twitter interaction that it could be a thing. There's not really enough evidence based on Twitter and what we know to see exactly what they're doing, but I wonder if the interaction between viewer and show is going to be stronger than it was even last time.
The Price is Right isn't bad with being interactive with fans on social media, though. I mean, they often, when I was a contestant on the show, when you fill out your confidentiality clauses, it says, do you have a Twitter handle? Put it down on here. Do you have an Instagram and all that stuff? And then whenever the show airs, the Price is Right Twitter will call you out in person. And they always say, 8554-PRICE, follow us on Twitter, go to pricesright.com. So the interactivity is always there. I don't know why the show feels like they have to devote a whole week to it. It almost feels like they're obligated to do it sometimes. It's like when you have Hawaii or something and they want some government money for a show that films there. So as long as you mention that it's Hawaii, it kind of boosts their tourism board a little bit and you get a little bit more money. I kind of get that same thing with The Price is Right, and maybe they're getting some cash from Facebook or Twitter or something by promoting the social media stuff more, because I don't necessarily know if they get more of the online interaction than those who would already do it on a regular show. I don't think it boosts that much just for that 1 week, because the people who are going to want to follow the show online are going to follow the show online. They don't need to be told to do it on a specific week.
Does Let's Make a Deal still do a socially awesome week?
I don't know if they do fully. I feel like they do, but
Silly
I know
Derek,
that
no
Let's
one
Make a
watches
Deal-
Let's Make a Deal.
I
Oh,
know that they still do like video deals though, so they still do like stuff like people, contact them on Twitter or whatever, and they get to come on in a special video deal, probably through Skype or something. So
Next week, we'll see if our predictions were right. Speaking of our predictions being entirely wrong, if you go back a couple episodes, you may hear us talking about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And a couple of us were like, we don't understand how this show is still on the air. It's probably going to be canceled after this upcoming season because the ratings are in the toilet. The numbers just aren't there. Nope! Renewed! I forget, though, who's hosting the next season of Millionaire?
it's Chris
It's
Harrison
gonna be-
again.
It's still
I'm
Chris
assuming
Harrison,
it's still Harrison.
like,
Which
oh my god,
actually-
we've got some host consistency for
which
once.
means that he is now the second longest running syndicated
That's
millionaire
very
host.
true.
Also renewed Celebrity Name Game. But more interesting than that, perhaps, ABC recently announced that it's bringing back a game show. Michael Strahan will be hosting $100,000 Pyramid on ABC. Will this stick this time? They've tried to bring Pyramid back a couple times in the past, and Pyramid has gone through many different iterations, top prize values. What makes them think that it'll
Well,
work this time?
I
I was
think
just going to say that I like the GSN version, and I feel like not a lot of people liked it, but I quite enjoyed it.
That was the Mike Richards
uh,
hosted one, right?
Mike Richards
Yes.
hosted one. And I think what they hope for this is that it'll do well, but it's interesting to know that this is the first time Pyramid in any incarnation will air in prime time. So it's not like they have to pull in a daily audience, just a weekly one. And we'll see if that makes a difference in how people like it. I liked the GSN version with Mike Richards. I thought Mike Richards was a great host. I thought they had a great set, a great atmosphere, and I love the rules that they used for it and the material that they used for it. I think the biggest downfall they had were the celebrities who were less than bright, and hopefully this version will ratify that.
The
One thing
truth.
that I think could
Rectify.
make Pyramid work on primetime is that it has natural suspense, especially with the winner's circle. There can be some very suspenseful moments and some nail biters, as you can see with any Dick Clark clip on YouTube. And with primetime, you can hopefully get actual celebrities. Something that I don't think the Donny Mid version, as we call it, really got too great with either.
Yeah, but I
the one-
think the Donny Osmond version I feel like got a little bit better than the Mike Richards version.
mean,
Well,
you
they
could
also
send-
had to get 10 celebrities a week for Donnie Mid.
What do you mean 10 a week?
Well, they had different celebrities on every day, and from what
Yeah,
I've
but
seen,
they
it
take-
didn't seem like they were consistent
Really?
and
They,
rotating.
they got the same amount. It was just I believe that they switched the episodes around. So they weren't in any particular order because it didn't matter because there was no returning champions.
I don't know if
I'm
they
pretty-
had. I don't know if they switched it up that much. I mean, I didn't really watch it when it was on, but it just seems like they mixed it up quite a bit, and it didn't even seem like even if you were on multiple episodes, you weren't on 5. I would say.
I mean, the one concern with this show, and I wish it the best, ABC in general, I think, has been trying to heavily promote Michael Strahan since he became co-host with Kelly Ripa, because he's joined GMA and now he's doing this. They're trying to, I don't know, I'm a little concerned about him hosting just because they're trying to expose him to numerous audiences. Because here's Michael Strahan. This is why you have to watch.
2 points to that. First of all, Michael Strahan, I think a lot of people were amazed at how much charisma he actually has as a television presence, especially being a former athlete. How many times have you seen interviews with athletes on television and they're like, well, how did you do in that game? Oh, well, I think we did very well. We got more points than them, and that was our strategy going in, and that we're going to try and do that again next week there, Jim. But Strahan has this charisma and this
was that a
person.
Bill Clinton impression?
Did Bill Clinton play football at some point? But Strahan has this personality on stage, and even though he does get a lot of broadcast time, he has the energy where I don't mind it so much. He's there, but I feel like he has the presence where he can carry the show. Another reason why I think they chose the Pyramid license to return to is ABC's probably seeing shows like Hollywood Game Night and Celebrity Name Game, where celebrities are getting back into the whole game show thing, especially in the primetime market. And they feel like, okay, well, there's definitely people that want to do it. And from the celebrity pool, what license, rather than trying to create something new? Because whenever ABC tries to create a new primetime game show, it doesn't work out very well. And they're like, well, what else has had celebrities? Match Game, I don't know about that. Well, let's go with Pyramid. Pyramid had celebrities. So I think that's why they decided to go with that. It's something that hasn't, it's been on intermittently. It's a classic. People, especially game show fans, are very aware of Pyramid. It's commonly cited as one of the better game shows to ever have existed. And you have to say how much of that was gameplay versus how much of that was Dick Clark. And it might have been just some magic between the two. But obviously, since they've tried it with so many other hosts, they must feel that the gameplay is strong enough where it's a strong contender to bring that into the prime time.
Obviously, the other option would have been Password, which already has had one reincarnation in the current ABC era.
And that didn't work out well.
Yes, but that also was barely Password, in my opinion.
It was more Pyramid than Password. It's more than Password. It's Pyramid.
No, but as I said before, I think Pyramid is a format compared to the other classic formats that, if done the right way, I think suits primetime well. And I think if you're an executive, that is something that you could see as a possible benefit.
Yeah, but see, that's why I'm willing to give it a shot. I just am wondering if Michael Strahan was the right choice for host, is more my curiosity than anything
else. With
all
due respect, Adam, how can we say that Michael Strahan is the right or wrong choice as a host when we haven't seen him host a game show?
I understand that. I'm just basing it off of what I've seen of him on Live and from GMA. So
I think his work on Live and Good Morning America, especially Live in particular, is a good measure for how some people think he might do. It's not, the end all be all, but I think it's certainly good. On Live, he has to deal with perhaps an unexpected moment, but he has to deal, more importantly, with celebrities and striking up conversations with them. I think he'll do well because it seems to me that he puts effort. I see effort in his work.
He's also executive producer of this version.
Well, I'm sure they just threw that on there for him. Like, guys, you want me to take on another job? I'm going to need a little something extra. So
he commits to his job.
That's what it is. I think you can see that in his work. I see it on Good Morning America. I see it on Live. I see it on Fox NFL Sunday. So I'm looking forward to seeing him take this on.
I'm curious how he'll interact with contestants. And I don't think we have any real body of work to show that.
We have a very small body of work.
The trivia on the Live portion.
Yeah, that's the only one I can think of top of my head.
Well, that and Good Morning America, again, to an extent, they go out onto Times Square and talk to the crowd out there. So I think it's small. It's definitely a smaller body of work than perhaps the celebrity interactions, but it's definitely there.
Well, we're just going to have to wait and see. As far as I can tell, they haven't announced an actual debut date for the show. They just said sometime in 2016, so probably fall when
it's it's in the summer, actually, from what I read. It's
going to be in the summer, and their summer is going to be absolutely loaded. You've got Pyramid, Celebrity Family Feud's coming back, 500 Questions is coming back, BattleBots is coming back, and they've got To Tell the Truth, which they taped last year, just sitting on the shelf with Anthony Anderson and Betty White. So they're going to have a loaded summer this year.
So ABC, we'll just have to see what happens with that. Before we wrap up, I want to bring up a little bit about Jeopardy. On Martin Luther King Day, January 18th of this year, we had an interesting anomaly in Jeopardy. It's happened before. We had 3 contestants all fail to have any money at the end of Final Jeopardy. It was a 3-way tie at 0, which means no returning champions, 3 fresh contestants the next day. Granted, two of the contestants were tied going into the final. So for them to both bet at all, I think was the right move. But the third contestant, no.
Should not have. Should have been 0.
That was like the absolute worst thing you can do in that situation. And she did it. Congratulations.
I mean, just to play devil's advocate, I do think that there is an argument for her betting everything but $1. I think she had 6,800 and she could have bet 67.99 because because the tied players could have bet nothing to prevent her from catching up. But
just for the record, she had 6,000. I'm looking at the game now.
Okay. She had 6,000. The other two had 13.8. But yeah.
Yes.
But I do agree with your devil's advocate point. There is an argument to bet everything but $1, and that would have been fun because we hadn't had $1 win in a long time either. But everything, congratulations.
Yeah. Now, I believe this is the first time it's happened in regular play since 1998. It did happen pretty famously a few years ago in the teen tournament, where this scenario was nowhere near present.
I mean, the other thing that comes to mind that makes this one rather interesting is the leading up to this show. Ever since they changed the rules that you cannot have co-champions anymore, we had a situation where Claudia Corriere, the second podium, was a returning champion that occurred earlier in the season at the end of a taping week, and Alex had surgery. As a result, the next taping date she could not commit. So they had to find a spot to bring her back in, and that show happened to be that show.
So we had 2 returning champions going to 0
neither of
returning
them
champions.
I love their comment at the beginning. Alex was like, "We have 2 returning champions, and we have the last lady's name? Oh, Randy. That's right, it was, wasn't it? Yeah. And he's like,
with an eye, though, with an eye.
With an eye, who did very well on her test, so we're not worried. If I was standing in that third one, if that was me, Randy, and I was standing there, I'd be like, you're putting me against 2 people that already have buzzer skills, that have already won games. You're putting me against them. I'd be walking out. Give me the home game, Alex. Like, I can't.
It's probably a better home game, but
you have a lot of company, about 31 years worth of it.
Like, I'll just take the download code to the Wii
might be an
game.
interesting point to discuss in the future about why a lot of people in Jeopardy feel like they're inclined to bet everything when they don't have to. There's certainly situations where betting everything is either a required play or the best play, but I feel like a lot of people bet everything when it just does not make a whole lot of sense.
Well, I can tell you exactly why each of those 3 contestants did it. I mean, when you're in the lead and you have a tie, yeah, you're going to bet it all. You really don't have a choice, because if you get it right, but the other person got it right and they bet more, you're going to feel really stupid. And the third person, who had less than half of what the other players had, just get as much money as possible and hope they both go for the miss, because if they bet 0, whether they get it right or wrong, which is what I think that person was counting on, then they're screwed either way. So you might as well swing for the hills.
So what would you say if the first 2 were tied and the last player has exactly half of the other ones?
Then you go for it.
Then that's where we can't have a 3-way 0 because the third one had to go for it?
I just feel that in that situation, there is the possibility that they both bet 0, but you have to think, since now we are returning co-champions, do the 2 people who are tied for the lead want to take the chance at a tie at 0? And I don't think that's the case. I think you go for it there, and if you're the third player, you got to think that they're going to bet against each other, hold pat, and hope for the best, and the best could actually happen to you.
Under the Jeopardy archive, they have a special term for this kind of situation called prisoner's dilemma, in which their advice in this situation, if you have less than 1/2 of a tied leaders, is that you bet nothing. Exactly nothing.
Yeah, but it's easier to say that when you're not there.
Yeah.
I just like how you said nothing. Exactly nothing. Not close to nothing. Exactly nothing. So, what I found interesting was the amounts given out at the end were kind of weird to me as far as the consolation prizes.
How was 2,000, 2,000, and 1,000?
But what I didn't understand was if the first 2 hadn't been tied and they'd all bet it all, like, what would the amounts have been?
Whoever had the highest, it would have been in the order of the scores going into the final.
I mean, I'm looking at this now. They gave Mike.
Well, what would they have given for the? Would they have made the other one 1,000? Then is what I'm saying. Would they have?
Oh, that's right. Well, they probably would have. They probably would have just broke it down into. Oh, that's a very good question. Now I realize what you're saying.
I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know why they gave Mike
that special $3,000 consolation prize.
Yeah, this is the first time that it's happened since the they've changed it so it's like 2,000 and 1,000. Back before, when it happened in the regular game, it was like computer or something like that. So
Parting gifts.
now it's like sponsored by Aleve. That's what I was waiting for. Was I wish the tiebreaker, like the 3-way tie, had happened when Aleve was sponsoring it, and then there's no Aleve, but we still have to throw their name in somehow. So
they do it
sponsored
before
by
Final
Aleve.
Jeopardy.
I mean, honestly, I'm surprised Alex didn't do that. The way Alex kind of told them that none would be coming back. He was rather cavalier about it, rather peppy about it. Like, well, since none of you are right, then none of you are coming back. No new champion on next day. See you later.
I think it was like I forget the exact quote, but I think it was something like, "That's too bad" or something like that. It was very straightforward, which in an odd way I found funny.
I did too.
Well, and I feel like, sometimes I feel like Alex knows what people like wager? Because I know in the booth they know what you're writing down, so that way they can look up any questions that they may have about your answer. Oh, should we accept that? So they can see what you're writing when they're doing it. Sometimes I feel like Alex knows a little bit because, for one thing, I don't know where it pops up, but he said the total before it pops up on our screen before, so I don't know like what exactly he knows, but
Maybe he just has the visual of what they wrote on the monitor on his podium.
and see that's what
Any former Jeopardy contestants or people Jeopardy know how who listen to this, leave a comment about
Or
how
anyone
Alex
who's like
would know.
who's been in the audience for the show at least.
But also, minor note before we go ahead and wrap things up, Jeopardy test is next week. So if you want to be that person and find out for us, or if you just want to be on Jeopardy, for your own devices, take the test for Jeopardy next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for Eastern Standard Times. It's 9 p.m. on Tuesday, 10 p.m. on Wednesday, and 11 p.m. on Thursday.
Trying to think if I have any advice from doing it in the past. I would say look up a little bit about books and movies from 2015.
pop
And
culture is huge. If there was a 20, I'll bet you. I'm betting Whip and Nene is going to be in there somewhere.
Just about wrapping things up. Does anybody have any odds and ends they want to bring forth before we go ahead and end the episode?
This season so far has been kind of remarkable. We didn't talk about Stack the Deck, but Stack the Deck was one with only a digit revealed a week or so ago. And Pathfinder, when it was played on the Perfect Show, was exacted for the second time in a row. And Three Strikes, when it was played on Christmas week, was also won for the second time in a row. It's undefeated so far this season. So it's been quite... And Switch, that's right. Switch is also
11-0.
perfect. 11-0. So it's been a very weird, funny season for pricing games so far.
Stack the Deck, it being Plinko notwithstanding, actually caused us to not have the perfect show because the contestant decided to pick the first number instead of the fourth number, and so
The Price is
Assuming
Right
you-
game theory episode's coming up soon.
yeah. So
Yes, it is.
assuming we call 10,000 Plinko a win, that was pretty much caused us to not have the perfect show. So I was pretty bummed out about that.
I guess we never really talked about why Millionaire has been renewed despite the numbers, and I wonder if that's going to be a discussion for another time. But I
Probably
think it
when
is
we get a little
interesting.
closer to the next season and we can actually get a firm grasp on how this current one went.
Before we go, we should also mention we did reference this. 500 Questions is back with a new host, so Jordan can't do his good impersonation anymore on a regular basis.
I would not consider this a good impersonation, but thank you for the segue,
See, here's the thing.
Nickel.
Now as we go through trademarks one by one. Where's the beef? Let's go through more trademarks.
I'm loving it.
But I think that's going to wrap it up before we get sued by all these infringements of contestants not appearing on stage. Again, thank you for listening. If you have something you want to say on
You're
the
welcome.
episode, feel free to leave a comment. Well, hopefully we will be back next week after the Jeopardy tests have aired
won't
and
be, no.
Socially Awesome Week has aired, and we'll have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. So until then, this is Torgo on behalf of everybody else. We will see you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to Contestants Not Appearing on Stage, part of the Torgo Entertainment Network. For more episodes of Contestants Not Appearing on Stage, check us out on YouTube or online at CNAOScast.net.
Yeah, that'll
I love the
probably-
idea that I've got sued for trade.
I'm glad you want us to get sued. Look! You're dealing with a litigation lawsuit for $10 million. Yay! I wish we could insert the clip here if we had that editing magic.
I can do
I
it.
wish we couldn't because I think I pretty much said that there is no way that
Yeah.
I was very insistent that I thought if it gets past this season, then I will. I don't know. I don't remember what I said, and I don't want to repeat it because it's probably something outlandish that I'll have to do.
You're
But
going to have to eat a hat.
yeah, I'll eat a hat.
Also,
Appear
for
on The
you-
Bachelor.
Oh, I'd like to do that. Trust me.
But more interesting than that, perhaps, ABC recently announced that it's bringing back a game show that I don't think we've really talked about that much on this podcast.
500 questions.
Well,
that
that's true.
that wasn't where I was
Well,
going, but yes, 500
that does
questions.
fit the criteria. Yes.
Well, I mean, maybe you wouldn't have such a long intro, and you wouldn't, you could have just said ABC's bringing back Pyramid. No, you're like, it's bringing back this show, and I'm like,
Are we critiquing the intro mid-podcast?
Yes, we are.
hi, I'm Randy, aka Jack.
Anyway,
Randy's
No,
time
all,
travel.
all the revivals, all of them. So, where do we want to start? Or do we want to start with
Pyramid.
Pyramid's
and
the big
then
one.
Go.
Jeopardy test is next week, so if you want to be that person and find out for us, or if you just want to be on Jeopardy, for your own devices, take the test for Jeopardy next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for Eastern Standard Times. It's 9 p.m. on Tuesday, 10 p.m. on Wednesday, and 11 p.m. on Thursday.
And hopefully you have better grammar than Torgo did there. If you wants to be on Jeopardy, you should probably work on your grammar.
I'm trying to relate to the common Ebonics fan who listens to the Game
What
Show
is
podcast.
what is this whole critiquing the host mid-podcast business?
It's
What
his
is the
thing.
whole critiquing the guy critiquing the host?
I'm just providing commentary.
And what's with all the guy critiquing the host? Let's keep this going.
Well,
So,
before that
Torgo,
snowballs out of control,
Torgo, are you auditioning for the test?
I am. Mine's Thursday.
I am doing mine Tuesday night. I'm trying to think if I have any.
We can actually get a firm grasp on how this current one went.
Firmly grasp it.
Hey, we do
Sorry.
have 12 inches.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Whoa. Whoa.
It
This
doesn't
calls
even
for the
air in my
term-
area anymore, so I can't even give an analysis because I really haven't even seen it.
Exactly. Most of us haven't.
Thank you, Derek,
just
for
there.
derailing the conversation.
Woo!
Go me.
Or-
Go me.
I'm betting Whip and Nene is going to be in there somewhere. Watch me whip. Watch me Nene. Watch me whip. Whip. Watch me Nene.
You just wanted to include that somehow, didn't you?
Ever since we started the first episode, I was like, if I can work in watch me whip, watch me Nene.
It's a damn shame we don't record this thing on video.
I thought you were going to
So
say
we
we
could
don't
have-
record this thing. I'm like, dang it. Christmas Eve happened again.
But I
Good
think
night,
that's-
everybody.